It was back in January of 2023 when CBC reporters Megan Grant and Elise Von Scheel, both of them with solid reputations in Alberta's media landscape, reported that the Alberta Crown prosecutors had felt political pressure about the Coots border cases. This is the blockade in southern Alberta, and of course, I think that the story speaks for itself. You remember the images: tractor trailers, farm equipment blocking that border crossing, and of course stopping traffic and for that matter halting commerce. It was a story that gleaned national attention and international attention when the RCMP executed a warrant and seized weapons, laying charges relating to that as well. A cache of weapons that some have suggested were to be used in what was being described as a plan to initiate a potential firefight with law enforcement. It was a dramatic story, and it got even wilder. It became even more prominent in the public eye when the CBC reported that, of course, Crown prosecutors had been feeling political pressure from the Premier's office, from Daniel Smith's office, relating to their assessment and prosecution of cases linked to that blockade. Premier Smith, from the outset, said that never happened. She said that those emails had not been sent. And folks looked back to interviews that she did with Rebel Media, with Ezra Levant, where she implied that she had been in touch with prosecutors. And then, of course, that recorded conversation, we played portions of it to you earlier this year with that so-called street preacher, Artur Pawlowski, who's been convicted on Coots-related charges, by the way. You remember in that conversation, Premier Smith said that she'd been having almost weekly conversations with prosecutors, and she later clarified, said that she had been speaking with her justice minister at that time, Alberta Solicitor General Tyler Shandro, at that time, said that she had not directly contacted Crown prosecutors, nor had members of her team. Well, this went to Alberta's Ethics Commissioner, Marguerite Trussler. And we told you this a while ago, several weeks ago, that the Ethics Commissioner said that she found, quote, no such evidence of an email. And she concluded that no one from the Premier's office directly emailed prosecutors about any of those cases. Now, Danielle Smith is saying now that she feels vindicated with the CBC posting this retraction, and I'll get to that in just a second. But it is worth noting that the Ethics Commissioner did conclude that Alberta's Premier was not squeaky clean on this. She contravened the Conflicts of Interest Act by talking to then Justice Minister Shandro about one of those cases. And the Premier has acknowledged this, and Danielle Smith has apologized for that. Well, the story got a little bit more interesting. The plot thickened, so to speak, yesterday when the CBC added an addendum, or actually right at the top. Is this a retraction or not? You decide. But when you see a news outlet using the word regret, it's significant no matter which way you slice it. You can see the story. It's still posted. It was originally released January 19th, 2023 at cbc.ca. The headline, Alberta Crown prosecution felt political pressure about Coots cases. The editor's note, right at the top of the story, says an earlier version of this story referred to emails allegedly sent by a staffer in Danielle Smith's office to the Alberta Crown Prosecution Service. Based on testimony by confidential sources, CBC News at the time described those emails as challenging prosecutors' assessment and direction on these cases. An editor's note was added the following day to specify that CBC News had not seen the emails. That was the first uh-oh. But a lot of people said, well, this is the CBC. These are skilled and reputable reporters. I mean, this is a news outlet, an agency that has been looked to by Canadians for many years to provide reputable, objective reporting that people can stand by. A lot of people defended the CBC almost blindly, saying, we know these reporters. We know this outlet. I find it very hard to believe, number one, that they would release this story in the first place without seeing the emails. And number two, that the story would stand without an apology, even if they hadn't seen the emails, if they trusted those confidential sources. Remember, some people were implying the source might have been Jason Kenney himself. I'm not saying it was. I'm not saying it wasn't, but I'm definitely not saying it was. The retraction, so to speak, goes on to say, after the Ethics Commissioner's report was released, CBC News reviewed its journalism and re-interviewed a number of sources. Confronted with the commissioner's report, our sources have insisted that Crown prosecutors felt political pressure, but they are not able to confirm the emails they originally described were sent directly from the Premier's office to the Crown. That's a problem. And this goes on to say, as such, we have updated the story and related pieces, removing references to direct contact between the Premier's office and prosecutors, which the Premier has vehemently denied. CBC News regrets reporting direct contact by email. Is it the right move to retract, to correct? Obviously. Is it unfortunate that it took this long and a threat to be sued for it to happen? Yup. What does Danielle Smith say about this? Well, she was on Twitter yesterday and said exactly what she said sitting in this studio a short time ago. And you can catch that interview in our archives. Said Danielle Smith, obviously a former talk show host, journalism is an integral part of our society, and all I've ever asked for is fair, accurate, and balanced coverage. After months of the CBC reporting interference between my office and the Crown, today, CBC News removed references to direct contact between my office and regrets reporting direct contact by email. Says the Premier, I've been vindicated, as has my office. And then, of course, you knew this was coming. She says, now that the CBC has expressed regret for its inaccurate reporting and Albertans know the truth, I consider the matter with the CBC closed. Additionally, I'm asking the Alberta NDP to acknowledge their error also and retract and apologize for spreading this misinformation. I doubt the NDP will, but maybe they'll surprise us. Ultimately, what are the implications here? This is a tough situation for two journalists that I know personally and a lot of people that work in the CBC newsroom that work hard. This is a tough one for them because it's a blow to their reputation, to be sure. It's also a blow to the reputation of journalists everywhere at a time where journalism is under attack. And that's certainly a fair statement. You see evidence of it all around. By the way, in just under 2 weeks from now, we're going to be talking about Bill C-18, the Online News Act, and Meta's fight, Facebook, with the Government of Canada, and the fight for Canadian journalism outlets to survive and all that kind of stuff. We're going to be going there. But I'm also talking about the personal threats. I mean, we're going to be talking to a meteorologist, Chris Cloninger, in about a half hour or less from now. He's going to tell you what he describes as PTSD, the mental health implications of some of the abuse that he's taken. We see journalists attacked verbally. We see them attacked online. And in some circumstances, if not here in our own cities, certainly internationally, we've seen journalists harmed, even murdered for what they're doing. Now, I'm not trying to bring murder into this conversation, but I don't think anybody would disagree with me if I assert that it is a tougher slog now than ever before to be reporting and to be reporting what you believe to be the truth by putting stories through your investigative process, by putting your name in the byline of a story and releasing it, essentially saying to your audience, I have vetted these details so you can, in good faith and confidence, believe them to be accurate. And a situation like this, unfortunately, hurts the credibility of not just the CBC, but of the craft. And that includes us. And so I can guarantee you that talk hosts and reporters and anchors and assignment editors and managing directors and everybody else has a bit of a pit in their stomach seeing this happen. This is a win for Danielle Smith.